Pastor Dan Herendine, and I want to welcome you to the cemetery. Now, you may be asking yourself, why a cemetery? But cemeteries are one of the quietest places you can find. But you're going to notice, even as you watch this, you're going to hear traffic go by. So even at a cemetery, it's not absolutely quiet. But quiet is very, very important. You remember last time we got together, we talked about beginning to learn to hear God's voice. And silence is a real important part of that. You see, even in the Gospels, we find out that Jesus needed the time to go off by himself to the quiet to have time to talk with his Father. You see, Jesus' life was very hectic. Those 3 years of ministry was a constant crush of people with their demands and their wants, healing. He taught and preached, he fed them, all the things that we read about in the Gospels. Oftentimes the crowds crushing in. And then he also had his 12 guys who were his disciples that he had to keep in line, probably much like herding cats. So the Bible tells us that often he would get up early in the morning and go to a solitary place and spend time with the Father. See, that's important for us as well. We oftentimes think that God will speak to us in some big dramatic fashion. A beam of light from heaven, a deep voice, something we can't miss, something that you can't somehow, I didn't hear that. But the reality is that God speaks to us in the quiet. Now there's a great account in the 1 Kings chapter 19 of the Old Testament where the prophet Elijah was running away from the evil Queen Jezebel. She'd threatened to kill him. She'd promised to kill him. God led him to a cave in the mountains. And it tells us that there was a dramatic windstorm. The mountains shook, rocks fell. But it also says that God was not in the wind. Then there was a traumatic earthquake, violent. But it also says that God was not in the earthquake. And then a horrible firestorm blew through the mountains. But God was not in the fire, it says. And after everything calmed down, everything was dead still, it says that Elijah heard the soft whisper, which was the voice of God. That's how God speaks to us. In our busy lives, we fill them with all kinds of activities, things with the kids, work, other commitments. We're busy from the time we get up to the time we go to bed. There's no time, really, for the quiet, for God to speak to us. It's really important that we do so. It is in that whisper that we hear from God. He may whisper to us through reading his word, through prayer, but we need to find the place and the time. It might be your bedroom away from the kids, maybe in a big closet somewhere where you can shut the door for a few minutes. It's real important that we take that time. It's only then that we learn to recognize the whisper. So I want to encourage you this week, find that place, find that time. Read your Bible, pray, and then listen. Learn what the sound of God's voice is. So, thank you for taking the time to join us today. God bless you, and hope to see you next time on Dry Bones.